welcome, Raphael. I would love for you to introduce yourself, and then we can get deeper into your thinking, my friend, around risk and what have you.
Okay. So my name is Raphael De Vittoris. I'm in charge of crisis management for the mission groups. And when I started to do this function, to be in charge of this function, which was the first time in the group history that we got one people fully dedicated to crisis management. I started to study a couple of, the basic books that you can find on crisis management. And what I discovered is you got as many theories as you have books. And so it was pretty hard to find a kind of a doctrine, or how can I say? I would use the bad word philosophy in terms of crisis management. And so that's why at the same time, I started a PhD on crisis management. And by coincidence, one of my very good friends put in my hand a book from Nassim Taleb. And I have no idea about the title in English, and it was the French version of that one. For that one, I read it in French, and they call it The Wild Luck. So it's the first book. I don't know the name in the title in English. And I have read that. It's not the first, in his first book, he doesn't speak about anti-fragility yet. It just starts, the beginning of his thought about how people can misunderstand luck. You have probably read the book. And this thing impacted me a lot at the moment where I was thinking about how we can, set up anti-fragile, even if I did not have this term in mind, because I don't have the paternity of this term in mind, because I'm in charge of the crisis management of a multinational, which have more than 70 plants all around the world, 120,000 people all around the world, agencies, factories, headquarters, and crisis can come from any kind of source with any kind of form. Regarding any kind of thing like social crisis, cyber attack crisis, geopolitical crisis, environment. So I was thinking about what could be the appropriate organization. And I organized my PhD according to I need to speak frankly, to the Nassim Taleb point of view. And I started, and also, so I will speak about my PhD a little bit because it's totally influencing the crisis management system so far. I use the complex vision of crisis management. You got a classical, I would call a classical position regarding crisis management. You have two main ones. One which is mainly based on consequences, and where you try to stop consequences. And you have another one where you try to work on, you see crisis as a disruption, and you don't work on the consequences, but on the cause. And then you have a very recent form of crisis management standpoint, which is the complex, where you can say, whatever cause and consequences, you don't manage anything. It just, you have a lot of coupling of activities. The complexity of organism is more and more deep. So don't try to make the full movie. You will not. So you should be able to react to any kind of crisis, especially the one you don't think about. So, which is, right now when I say that, it's absolutely not rocket science, because a lot of people think about it this way so far. But back into 2015, we did not have Anti-Fragile book, and we didn't have Skin in the Game, and also in France, Nassim Taleb was not so famous. So I started to study scientific reviews pretty deeply, and all the classical one and all the complex one, I would say, and we started to study mainly three things actually. The first thing is, according to all the methods regarding crisis management, and which one are the one you should master. Because some people tell you, some author tell you, the most important in crisis management is leadership. Another guy will tell you is the crisis room. Another guy will say it's a crisis manual. Another one will tell you is anticipation. Okay, and I started to collect, and I have found maybe 67 main how can I say main levers to appropriately manage crisis management, but it's totally irrelevant to ask to the direction team, which is not specialized in crisis management, to master 67 levers different. So I'll say, okay, what are the key ones? And I discovered that we did not have any study which put all of them together in various situations and check which one were the more determinant to make sure that you will solve it properly. And this is highly related with a complex point of view. Second thing is, once you have that, how do you transmit this knowledge to people who are not fully dedicated to crisis management all around the world, across various cultures and countries and languages? And then I use the concept map to try to elaborate what would be the appropriate way to distribute this knowledge and start the change management. And also, I thought about the homothetic structuration of the organization, because if I follow Mandelbrot, and following also Taleb, and there is an homothetic characteristic of some crisis where you can repeat some pattern at in a various dimension, and we can see that, and that's why we try to have a kind of homogeneity and consistency at various dimensions, like the small inside the factory, in the factory, in the country, in the continent, in the group, and with a lot of coupling to manage it homogeneously and smartly. It's bad.
Yeah.
And so this is the work I'm working on right now, and is largely influenced by the anti-fragility concept, because my first goal was to get the group more resilient.
Yep.
And I was wrong. I was not so wrong. It's better than nothing. It's better to be fragile, totally fragile. But I will first try to get it more resilient. And okay, it's you can resist a little bit more to common crisis, but if you have the mega shock, you'll die.
Yep.
So it's not a bulletproof vest against crisis. So that's why I was wrong, and I needed to review all my position and the position of the group who trust us, and validate the model, and we work on the anti-fragility model, I would say, as far as we can respect it. Do I answer your question?
Most definitely, my friend. So tell us more. So what have you learned, as you've said, you've looked at resilience, but beyond resilience to anti-fragility, what have you learned about that achieving greater anti-fragility relative to different shocks? What have you learned, and what can you share with the world?
So what we learned and what we are still learning, I need to be humble. Yep. Because it's not behind us, because we have a lot of questions. For some topic, speaking about anti-fragility is not a problem. For other topic, maybe we cannot concede that yet, or it's not appropriate time. And but what we learn is stress is good. Get our ass kicked is good. And instead of trying to have an armor and use hundreds of resources to be under armor in order to face everything, it's better to be, how I would say, flexible, smooth, and try to don't fear the future and wait for turbulence. And for some areas, it's easy to set up, especially for the areas where, when you discuss with marketing people, they didn't wait for Nassim Taleb to have this way of mind, because the market is evolving and they try to making a mistake in the market a big deal because it's bringing you a lot of data in order to adjust your position and know better your customers. So it's not a big deal. But for industry or R&D, it's a pretty big, I mean, how can I say, big step to climb up. And sometimes you're like, it's hard to say to a factory, you should make a mistake. Do some mistake, my friend. Make some mistake, a lot. It will be good. And but it's hard to say that in the crisis context. What I discover is change your scale. If you say to the people, make some mistake, and you use the crisis background as an illustration, everybody is afraid. Me first. You discuss with the factories, and I work in the factories for few years. They do that every day.
Yeah.
When you see a factory, you see a cathedral of small adjustments made by generation of people before you based on mistake. So they make mistake, they learn, and they apply, and it's a cathedral of that. So making mistake and correct it to be better, and instead of being under armor and disconnected from outside, is natural for them. What I discover is I need to adjust first my position and then my speech to the appropriate scale according to the topic and the population I'm talking to.
And I love your emphasis on marketing, kind of already embracing some of the concepts. Raphael, as you encountered other areas that have not embraced the concept, how did you help them, or how do you continue, exactly as you said, we all learn and continue to learn. How have you helped them sort of pierce that and really take that step to achieving greater anti-fragility?
So I base all my action, professional action and academic action, on one pillar of my action, which is crisis simulation. The most thing I'm doing, the most of my main tool is crisis simulation. We don't have COVID-19 every year, thanks God. And but when you have 10 years without major crisis, to make sure people will move in an appropriate way instead of just playing with decile, as everybody can get the temptation in the peacetime. And the best thing is put people in situation. Better is your crisis simulation. Even if sometimes the scenario can be far-fetched, if everything else is pretty realistic, people will feel in their guts how it's disturbing, how it could be a nightmare. So then they open, cognitively speaking, after that, they are ready to listen to you. And then your training is interesting. Training before simulation, I prefer don't do, because it's less, and also my studies show that it's not the same effect at all. And so usually to help people, before I help them, I say, you know, guys, what about having a crisis simulation? I find my way to make sure it will be a good idea, appropriate moment, appropriate scenario, appropriate level of difficulty. And then we play. And actually, if your crisis simulation is pretty far from what most of the, I will not be very friendly towards the consultants, but pretty far from what do consultants, but more about what do people who work on team building, because it's really close to team building when I play that. And then I don't need to help them anymore. After the simulation, you let people breathe, you let people get excited and get out all these testosterone, adrenalines, or whatever you want to call it, and then people speak and they help themselves. And the first thing they say, oh, okay, there is measures they decide to take in order to get better, which is not armors, it's just adaptation and flexibility. So according to the way you see that, you can say, is it resilience? Is it anti-fragility? But what proved me I'm right is, in 90% of the case, they ask me, when do we do another one to check?
Fantastic.
Another scenario, something kick our ass right now. This one was easy to get us prepared. Right now, you kick our ass. We want to progress. What about doing some major social crisis and then this is anti-fragility, because I usually use the metaphor of a glass. The glass is fragile. If I drop a glass, crash. And if I put an armor around it, it will not crash. It's just resilient, but it's still fragile inside.
Yep.
But if I create a glass when it doesn't break, that means right now it's even better than before, so I can drop in for higher place. We start to go, we are in the direction of anti-fragility. It is exactly what we are doing.
Yeah.
So I cannot say, I'm very too humble to say that Michelin is anti-fragile, because it's not. There is a lot of areas of fragility as any kind of organization. But the way we start to structure everything, because it helps us to work on measures, physical measures, cognitive measures, and managing measures.
Fantastic. So I love how you're describing, Raphael, because you really use a simulation, like you said, a simulation to activate a degree of resilience or toward anti-fragility, and you begin to recognize when they are truly achieving more anti-fragility when they ask you, give us more simulations, let us become stronger through stresses, essentially learning and asking for stress in order to continue, asking for crisis in order to continue their evolution. Fantastic. How receptive do you find people to that when, exactly to your point, you give them a simulation, they learn something? What would you say is the percentage that actually say, give us more crisis, Raphael?
I would say it's, I mean, I'm not kidding. 90% of the people want to do to do another one. The 10%,
so very high. So very high.
Very high, because to speak frankly, most of the time they play daily job. They play with this pressure from managers, from organizations, from, I mean, the job that everybody is feeling everywhere in the world. Then we stop the time. The group allow them to allocate a couple of, I mean, actually it's 2 half days. So a couple of hours, like 8 hours in 2 sessions, to work on crisis management, where they can make mistakes. And every time when I speak is, guys, it's not free time. It's not playground, but there is no consequences. Everything is for fake. So we are here to learn. If you make some mistake, good. If you are super good, good. So, and also no one, I mean, the only report I will give to the headquarters or whatever will be your report. So there is no pressure. I'm not the Moscow High who will say, oh guys, in this area people are weak. No, we want you to don't be perfect, because we are not able to tell you how you to progress. You are the only one. But this thing is easy because I belongs to, I mean, because of 2 things. First, Michelin is an industrial company. In industry, you have the culture to every time check, try, perform, and go produce quicker, better quality. So it's not a problem to stop the time and simulate a mistake. To learn from that, it's in the mindset. Second, it's also the culture of the group, which is who is very open to such kind of things. So so this thing is it's easy to achieve. But the key thing, for my part, regarding the thing I can master, the key thing is the level of difficulty. There is 2 things. The level of difficulty, if people start on crisis management, if a direction team, fortunately, never face crisis, we're never trained on crisis, and want to start, and we start with a simulation to get them aware about what are all the context of the crisis, you should use first the appropriate level of difficulty. You cannot kill them. You cannot bring a very tough scenario. You need to adjust it appropriately.
Yep.
You need to have the right level of difficulty, and then Next time you can put a nightmare scenario, but not the first time.
Yep.
The second thing is the level of realism. And I use a lot of energy on that, for example, fake TV news, fake journalists, fake families at the gate, call from fake people from the government with the appropriate wording, with the, everything is fake news, TV news, a newspaper. We do everything.
Fantastic, Raphael. Can you hear me, Raphael?
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. It's pretty fun to do, and it's also grateful to see people who are very involved, and sometimes they forget it's for fun for a while, for a couple of minutes, so they can really express themselves. And so those two things are the main component of the success regarding my part. For the rest, the culture of the group and the nature, the industrial nature of our activity helps a lot.
Fantastic. Raphael, I really appreciate the way you're describing it. It's a simulation. You have to account for the level that you apply of the crisis, the level of stress that you expose them to, and additionally, the degree of realism that you have. Let me ask you this question, my friend. Is the simulation completely distinct from the day-to-day work? Or do you actually implement the simulation in the context of a day-to-day work that the people are doing? Is it separate, or is it or within the context?
It's a great question, and it's and I will. My answer is it depends, because it depends on two things, and that's why I will need to describe you a little bit about what is behind the simulation. My simulation is not a scenario I write down and I bring in, there is a story they will go through and that's it. All my scenario got multiple possibilities of consequences. It depends on their decision. Mm-hmm. So it's like a crossroad, and you have a lot of roads you can take and a lot of crossroads after that. And according to the succession of their decision, consequences are different. So it can be success or a fully nightmare according to what you decide, not only what how you behave and how you are organized. So according to this, every time I need to start from real situation. So I should start from daily job. And then every time there is a deal with the boss, every time of the entity is, do you want to know when we start? Do you want to be taken by surprise totally, according to the appropriate level of difficulty, making sure that we will not create a mess everywhere with everybody running everywhere thinking that there is a fire when there is not? Or do you want to set up a clear time frame when we will play that? You don't know the scenario, but maybe you want to segregate that from the daily job. And it depends. What I see, and it's not what I decide. As I'm a service provider, I listen to my customer. They know their people better than I do. So they sometimes tell me, no, it's too early for them, or it's too early for me, because we will mix up everything. We don't have the main principle, and it can create a mess. And or maybe it's not the appropriate time because we recently experienced this situation and we don't want to make connection. You can have 100 various reasons to don't do that. If yes, so we don't do that. If they tell me, no, connect that, take us by surprise, no problem. We trust you that you will not create a mess, making 5,000 people thinking that everything is burning. But for the rest, no, we want to play. So most of the time, the pure beginner want to segregate the time frame. No problem for me. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, when people are pretty experienced or they want to get challenged, they don't separate. And sometimes I tell them, guys, during all this time, you will be not available. Say, okay, my people will need to find a way to don't do the daily job this day. We don't tell them they need to be ready to do this. So, and this is the tendency right now. I started this job in 2015. I have visited, if it's not 100, it's just a little bit less. Direction team, we work a lot. So for some direction team, I came a couple of times. So this is the tendency. As the group is growing, we got some acquisition. We are growing with new activities. There is some okay, I forgot the name in English. Subsidiary companies which joined us. So right now, my scope is expanding. So I cannot tell you that the tendency is definitive because everything is evolving. But what I see is, as soon as you try first time, you want to get taken by surprise for the second time.
Yeah,
it's what I see every time.
Yeah,
and this is also for me a very mark of anti-fragility way of thinking.
Yeah.
Like I will learn more.
I have to tell you, Raphael, your story in the work that I do, your story is very, very sacred because it's exactly to your point. It is rich. It is a blending. It's a separation. It's starting where they are. It's really being cognizant of the level of stress that manifests, helping them grow, etc. Let me ask you this last question and really respect your time, my friend. It takes a lot of courage in an organization and individuals to take this kind of step that you're taking and really being able to do it. Can you say something about the courage it takes and what's necessary for an organization such as Michelin and others to really take that step and do the kind of work you're doing?
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage because if I go to the history of the group, this group, which is more than 120 years old, didn't suffer, fortunately, a lot of crises. Of course, it was here during the Second World War and needed to survive and continue to work in the Second World War, helping the Allies and everything. But except two big, how can I say, fire in key areas, and also the death of his number one, the president, and also Indianapolis in 2015. In 2005, Indianapolis motor race. And you got where a very few cars started because of a tire problem, and except those, the group didn't suffer a lot of big crises. I just told you 4 of them in 120 years. In every 30 years we have a crisis. Does it? And every time he survived. So it's a very courageous position for a group to say, we will pay a guy to go around the group, impact somehow, even if it's a little, our organization, trying to get a nomothetic structure. I don't go into detail, but there is a lot of anti-fragile, I hope, detail in the organization, except the homothetic, and spending some time with a lot of direction team to practice. So at that time they don't work. Yeah. When they practice, they don't produce tire. I mean, we need to be specific, and it costs time, it costs resources, and also we got some top-level managers who put them in an uncomfortable position because they accept to play a simulation where their reference will not be useful, and maybe it's not very comfortable place. And but they accept to play. We got our direction committee who played regularly, very stressful, high-level simulation, and they accept that. So it's very brave, I would say, because I know when I discuss with my counterpart in the other big companies that not everybody play that. So it's very courageous, very, very courageous to do that during peacetime. It's very easy after a big crisis like COVID to look courageous, saying that right now we will do this. What I can tell you is the group I belong to started during peacetime. And what I could see is during this COVID crisis, it was priceless to have this structure, people trained. Of course, nothing was totally perfect, but you cannot imagine how it was comfortable to have some solid basement and way of thinking. Once more, and something I will really point out in the lesson learned is the anti-fragility concept was key in terms of homotheity and also in the way that we didn't follow a template. We didn't have the format of the how can I say health and safety or pandemics based on H1N1 format that we follow step by step as other company has done. For some of them it was successful, for some of them not sure. We needed to recreate our action according to the new data, the new situation, and no crises are identical. So anti-fragility way of mind forces us to don't hide us behind our armor and maybe making a mistake, but going toward the situation saying, okay, I need to adjust, I need to adapt, I need to be agile, so I need to know. So I'm not afraid to get a little bit burned and to learn that. And I will not hide myself behind a format wrote down, maybe 6 years ago on a crisis which is slightly different, but we call pandemic also, but which is totally different. We will need to recreate ourselves, and we are not afraid about it. And this group, thanks to that, get a lot of shortcut in the organization. And the big organization got a very long process. It's everybody work in the organization complain about process. When you exceed a critical size, you have big process and administrative stuff. And what I could see is we got a multinational say, create shortcuts, create your own team, adjust everything. Our crisis cell evolved all around the crisis. It was totally different at the end of the crisis than it was at the beginning. We also disrespect totally some major principle regarding crisis management and business continuity. We didn't care that. We adjusted it permanently. So it's not me. It doesn't belong to me to say if Michelin was a success or not in this crisis. I'll let everybody make his own research on it. But the fact is, all this anti-fragility way of thinking, even if it was formalized or not formalized, I don't use the word anti-fragile yet in the group, was useful. But it's not because of me. Long time before I start, we got our risk manager and listen to that, because it's one of the key points very few people see. I will start from another angle. A lot of people, when they do risk management, base their analysis on risk on two parameters: consequences, probability.
Yep.
Okay. Long time ago, before I joined the group, some people say we don't care probability. 11 September, the 10th, the day before, probability 0. Fukushima, probability 0. And so we don't, and people thought, the group thought about that long time ago. So what I want to say here is, even if I try to put anti-fragility here, the seed were there in the group. It's not because of me. Nassim Taleb put the word on that. With the black swan, anti-fragility, he put the appropriate word so everybody could conceptualize it easily. But the fact is, it depends. My understanding is it depends if your collective mindset, if the maturity of the organization is here or not. And I was lucky, it was there.
Very nice. Very nice. Your story
Sorry
has
for my poor English. I'm
no,
sorry
no,
for
no,
all the mistake I make
no.
regarding my all the grammar and vocabulary. I
All,
apologize for that.
all good, Raphael. Your story is absolutely brilliant, and there are so many lessons to be taken from it. My friend, I want to respect your time. Thank you so much for making the time. I hope you'll spend more time with me in the future to even dive deeper. But I want to thank you for that because there are so many rich nuggets. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it too, and I'm very glad about all the things you share to me. I will follow all your work and all this action pretty carefully because we are in the same battle.